It is 7:01 on Monday, March 23rd. For the meeting of the Issaquah Park Board, I'd like to call it to order. Start with a roll call. We'll go with Marlene Waxy.
Here.
Jane Takushi.
Here.
Diana Wren.
Here.
Anna Novakovic.
Hi, guys.
Tim Motley. Present. Chris Kovac.
Here.
Katie Bell.
Here.
David Liu. Present. Ryan Olson. I'm here. And I do not see Mark the Intner or Jeff Renewal.
Jeff said he was going to be virtual. He might be a few minutes late.
Excellent. We have no voting action, so I don't think we need a quorum. Is that correct? Has everyone had a chance to review the meeting minutes from the February 24th Park Board? So, are there any corrections or edits? Excellent. And the minutes are approved. I do see some names I'm not familiar with online, I believe. Is there a public comment? If so, thank you. I'll call on you each. And if you could try to keep your comments to under 5 minutes, that would be great. And I think Steve Pereira, you had your hand up first.
Unmute him.
I've unmuted myself. I don't know if you good folks can hear me.
That's perfect, Steve. Great.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So I sent in some comments earlier, and I don't want to repeat what I've said. I guess just kind of background and context. I guess before I get to that, I always like to start by saying thank you to each of you for your service to Issaquah and this board for dedicating your time and effort to help Issaquah become a better place. That should always go without saying and probably doesn't get said enough. So thank you to you good folks for volunteering on our behalf. That said, jumping in, again, I sent in some comments earlier and I don't want to I just point them out and ask you to read them and consider them in your deliberations. I guess my context at this time is that in the Park Bond Board levy issues you're looking at, a certain number of items have been proposed for possible consideration. I guess what I'm not understanding is the context in which why these particular items were put forward as wanting to approve, or what's the priority of items that come through the park board for getting considered or approved of. And I'm going to just use an example. The one thing that is really high on my list is the Eck House Confluence Park renovations. To me, that just seems like a high priority item should be based on city existing funds, not based on if the city taxpayers will pay for it or to be prioritized, we'll do it. If not, we're probably not going to get around to it. I just want to understand the context of what the priority is, though, overall, what gets approved, how things get prioritized or not prioritized. Some of the items on the list I just don't understand, like the dog park at all is all on there, but most of the items on there I don't see as taxpayers wanting to spend extra money for. I'm just only speaking for myself. I wanted to understand and look at what the prioritization of items that get onto the workload plan, and as this goes through the public process, which is probably just starting now, that needs to be better understood by, I guess, both by myself and by taxpayers. So I'll wrap up with those general comments. Thank you for your time again. I appreciate it. And I don't see an option to lower my hand. So if there's a way to do that.
We got you, Steve.
Good.
Steve, thank you very much, Ryan. If I could just add, again, you referenced your email, Steve. Thanks so much for sending that. If you would like, we can add your email to the meeting minutes, just so that's on the record. That includes more of your comments. So we'll plan on doing that.
Thank you.
And I will touch on prioritization process in the presentation coming up.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Is there any other public comment? Okay. All right. Well, thank you for those that were able to provide your public comment. Much appreciated. And with that, we'll move on to regular business. First order of business is the park bond renewal presentation by Jeff Wally.
All right. Thank you. Robin, thank you for sharing the screen and queuing that up. As she's queuing it up, I want to introduce Laura Haas, our Department Operations Specialist. Laura is in her fourth week. Just started the 4th week. Great to have her on board. Maybe we can go around and do introductions during good of the order at the end of the meeting. That would be fantastic. And Laura can share a little bit about herself as well, but excited to have her on board.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you so much. Thanks, Robin, for sharing the presentation. Tonight, we have this one item. Hopefully, we'll have a rather robust conversation. If you recall, the February meeting, Mayor Mullet joined us. Mayor Mullet had took the opportunity to introduce the opportunity we have at the end of this year when we have some prior park bond funds expiring at the end of the year to strongly consider doing a renewal on that park bond. What that would mean would be is utilizing the same levy rate for that expiring bond and asking voters if they would like to renew that and keep that same levy rate and do another wave of investments within the park system. If you want to go next slide, Robin. Tonight, I really want to kind of talk a little bit about a number of things. First, a little bit of the history of park bonds here in Issaquah, and then talk about the proposed timeline as we consider this and as City Council considers this. I'm scheduled to go to Council and start talking about this with them at the April meeting, April 6th meeting. So your feedback tonight, your thoughts, comments will be very, very helpful and informative to me. I will talk a bit about the revenue opportunity and what that means and how we might leverage some additional revenues on top of that levy renewal or the bond renewal. Then we'll talk about prioritization and considerations and why the items that were at least example items that were provided last month, and we'll start talking about in detail how they got there. These didn't just come out of thin air. We've had a lot of public engagement over the last several years, namely with the park plan and a number of other things that the community has clearly shared with us what are some priorities to them. So really want to dive into some discussion and get some feedback from you all on that. Also, throughout as we sort of wrap up with questions and discussion, I'm hoping to have a chance to hear from all of you. I know at the February meeting, I invited you. This is now a public discussion. So as you've maybe had conversations within your neighborhood, within your spheres of influence, would love to get a sense of the feedback you're hearing on all of this. So that's tonight. Next slide. So park bonds are not foreign here in Issaquah. In our recent history, there have been 2 bonds that have been passed. This community has shown a high level of support for those bonds. In 2006, there was a $6.25 million bond focused primarily on land acquisition, trails, and some park renovations. Historically, I can find out specifically what those went to. I apologize, I don't have those tonight. And then in 2013, there was a $10 million park bond that the community approved. Both of these, I think, were approved by well over 65 or 70% of voter approval. The 2013 bond, half of that bond, $5 million of that went towards renovations of the Julius Bone Pool. Those renovations were primarily within the systems themselves, improving water systems, pump systems, a lot of sort of necessary nuts and bolts that were really needed at the time for that pool. Also a number of park projects. $1 million of that 10 million was for the turf fields at Central Park Pad 1 that helped fund that project. Some additional funding was needed to complete that work. The bridge you see, the photo, that phase of Confluence Park was part of that $10 million bond in 2013 as well. And then here we are, fast forward 13 years later in 2026, with an opportunity to, again, engage the community and ask this question: Are they interested in another bond to further investments into their in your park system?
Just a quick question.
Yeah.
Are those dates time bound? Got to use the money within a 10, 12, 13 year window, or are they open end?
They're how do you say this? They're time bound in a sense, in that a bonds really invest in one-time capital projects. Usually a bond isn't for ongoing programmatic operational support, right? And so time bound in, hey, here's the list of projects that we want to complete with those bond funds. So once those projects are complete, you've expended the bond funds, if that makes sense. It's not a whereas an ongoing levy would be sought for operational investments, paying for recreation programs or maintenance of parks.
But if it didn't get spent on X project, it would still be available. I'm just trying to understand if there's a expiration date on these things.
I'll confirm that. I would say no, but again, there's not proceeds, there's not leftover proceeds from these projects, if you will. Yeah, but yes, I'll confirm that. I know I arrived in 2016 after the park bond was passed. As we were completing those projects, some of you may remember this. We sent out a postcard to residents, sort of celebrating, hey, the bond has been completed. We took that $10 million bond, got additional grant funding, got additional funding to complete all the projects on that list, which in total ended up being about $16 million. So I guess, again, I hope I'm not being too confusing, but there's not like a leftover money from that $10 million.
Okay, fair enough.
So an idea of a timeline as we look ahead. If a goal is to take something to the voters in November at the general election, sort of working backwards, we've got some pretty important dates to hit. We're obviously having our conversation tonight with you all to further discuss this concept and this idea. April 6th, so in 2 weeks, I'll be presenting similarly to City Council and beginning to get more focused feedback from them in terms of questions they might have, level of interest they might have in further pursuing this. There's a City Council retreat in early May. Is likely will be a continuation of those conversations as we head into the summer months, really May, June, and July. If we are continuing to pursue this idea of a bond renewal, will be really, really important months for community engagement, education, sharing, etc. By the end of July, City Council will need to make a formal decision because to hit a general election, we would need to have our information, the ballot, specific ballot language and information to King County elections in early August. So before we start talking about projects and expenditures, let's just talk a little bit about revenue and what potential order of magnitude we're talking about. So these are still being worked on by finance. I've had a chance to meet with our finance director. She as well is getting some advice from bond counsel. We don't sell our own bonds. Bonds are something that professional firms do on behalf of cities. And looking at the levy rate that's about to expire, we're looking at an order of magnitude, given that the city is bigger now, of a $17.3 million in proceeds from that bond renewal. We also have, and I think you're aware, as we've talked through Park System Plan and our other revenue sources, developer impact fees have been collected over the last number of years. We have a balance about $3 million in developer and park impact fees that have been collected. Given the projects that have been prioritized by the community in our park plan, which are now being considered for this bond renewal, all of those have a capacity building nature. So the rule with park impact fees is they need to pay for capacity, additional capacity into the system. And so as we look at these list of projects, many, if not most, do add capacity. So utilizing those developer impact fees is a real opportunity here to further leverage funds. We also think they're, given the list of projects that are being considered, ample grant opportunities. Conservatively, I will admit, we think we could get another $3 million at least in grant revenues as we should this bond be approved. So that 17 million could be more in the neighborhood of the mid $20 million as we start looking at size and scale of potential projects and potential investment level. Next slide. So how do we consider these projects? And I think we heard this question in the public comment, and I think it's a really, really important one. To consider a bond renewal and do this work in a year, thankfully, we're not starting from scratch, and we do not want to start from scratch and just say, hey, what projects do we want to consider? Let's utilize the work that's been done, the community outreach that's been done, the park system plan that we all worked on, that you all worked on, that City Council adopted in 2024, identified projects, a number of projects, and then prioritize those projects. And if you recall, developed near-term priorities, mid-term priorities, and long-term priorities. So the projects that Mayor and I just even showed as some example projects to consider come right off of that. Were identified as near-term priorities. We also have an adopted, if you recall, the city adopts a capital improvement plan every 2 years and renews it every 2 years. So the park CIP also has a number of these priorities, not all of them, because there's not enough funding to do all this work. I think another realization that I think we need to consider as we think about this bond renewal is that amount of revenue in the bond renewal will not fully fund the near-term priorities that have been identified by the community, and so there will need to be some prioritization as to what is considered. And so, along with the park plan, along with the 6-year CIP, and we talked a little bit about this in February, but I want to emphasize this point and really get some feedback from you all tonight. What is before you is not one single large project that would gobble up all $23 million of that. We really think there would be value in understanding the diversity of interests that this community has, understanding the role that a park system plays in a city and the residents, the 40,000 residents of the city. From Steve, who I completely respect his opinion, has one goal and desire for what a park system is, whereas another resident has a very different desire and interest of what a park system is. And we really set priorities and try and set investments to address the number of interests and needs that a park system is serving. So in saying that, we really feel like focusing more on a myriad of small to medium-sized projects would result in a broader community benefit than focusing on one specific area or interest of the park system. So that's one consideration as we start going into this list of projects. We also feel like it addresses a variety of community uses within the park system, as I said earlier. And we also think a real important consideration is geographic distribution of these investments. How are we geographically making these investments across the city and through the city? Next slide. So maybe before jumping into the projects themselves and sort of talking through these example projects, maybe we'll go back to the next slide. Any just general thoughts or questions about priorities or considerations? Or would you rather I just keep going on the projects? Any pleasure. Anyone? Okay. Oh,
Chris
I see.
has his hand up.
Hey, Chris.
Yeah, just real quick. The 3 million from the development fees. Roughly how long did it take to accumulate that amount?
That's probably revenue over the last 4 or 5 years.
Okay, then follow-up question, is it possible to project how much might be, an estimated amount that might be accumulated during the term of the bond?
Good question. We'd have to work that out with finance. It's possible. There would be more. Again, I think for the purposes of at least what we wanted in this first slide was to be pretty conservative, but you're absolutely right. That's all dependent upon growth and how many multifamily or single family residents are being built. So we can try and fine tune that and plan to fine tune that as we get into a little more detail in the coming months.
Thank you. Yeah, that might help with just contingency items.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, thank you.
So can I ask just sort of a question about that sort of a high level vision for spending this 20 some odd $1 million? Do we want more? Do we want better? Do we want improved? What at a high level, where do you see the need and the biggest impact for the community for this money to be spent?
Yeah, great question. Well, I will tell you, I will paraphrase what the community told us, the park system plan, and that's take care of what you got. So improve. I also improve not just in quality, but functionality. Let's make our park system more functional in terms of some of the needs. I think improve and expand. I think we've heard it time and again when it comes to the approach of athletic fields. And you might recall, as we've talked about this with all of you as a group, there's not a lot of undeveloped, flat, accessible, developable acreage left. And so we have to get uber creative in how do we look at the fields within our own parks, the fields within the school district, and the fields within the state park. So, fields that are already publicly owned, and how do we increase functionality, right? And so that's, because really it's not expanding the park system. I would say what we heard from the community was let's have it function better. We're pretty land constrained as a town. We don't want to, we don't want to add a bunch of more, active, developed park space. And how do we make it work better?
Very nice.
Name on that. What's the community thoughts on about expanding the bowls? The Julius Bowl, is that part of the?
For the prior bond, the $5 million.
Yeah, but that's like 13 years ago. So now that, it's 13 years later, is there an interest in the community about expanding what we have? Because, the need is there. And so I'm just curious, that survey that you have there.
Yeah, again,
And how high up is it? You compare with other projects.
no, great question, Katie. We know, as we did the feasibility study for expansion of the pool, we haven't asked a survey to the community to say, hey, rank all these needs. We do know though that expansion of the pool was seen with some pretty high interest by the community. We also know in that feasibility study, that project alone is probably a $20 million project. And so if you recall, we have been in continued conversations with the school district about, hey, if this pool is expanded, it's not only expanding community use, but it's also addressing and expanding the needs that the district has, because they use that as a competition pool, as you know. And so I think how that expansion gets funded, well, and meets.
Meets are not run there because there's no, yeah, you're right, high school meets, not the, yeah.
Not the club meets, but high school meets are there. Yeah. So, anyways, just to say that, yes, there's interest in the expansion of the pool. Again, I would open it up for all of you. I think how that gets funded is still needs to be worked out. To
So
consider.
then my question is that will this park bond include some of that? Because, that the conversation about should some of that money be allocated to work along with the school district to expand the pool? Because
I would be open to hearing the conversation here tonight.
I mean, what I'm hearing from the community is that, in the summer months, the parents are chomping at the bit, trying to get swim lessons, and it's always at full capacity. And then, and if you go there, parking situation, I mean, and there's always kind of it's too small for how many residents are using it for. I'm not just talking about the school, but I'm talking about just
Community use. Absolutely.
So,
Yeah.
not enough lanes for people, being turned away and whatnot. I mean, so.
So again, up for conversation tonight, right? And I think what we're going to find is again, mid $20 million is a lot of money and it's exciting, but it also probably doesn't go as far as what our needs are going to have. So yeah, I think absolutely. Let's talk about this as we get into projects.
I was just gonna ask, yes, this is our $20 million, but this is not our full parks budget. This is just the bond. So I think maybe we have to kind of think about, there's this bond that we need to do some of these improvements. There's the overall budget and what percent of the budget would this 20 million be? So as an example, we've all been talking about Tibbetts. Tibbetts is going to be way more than $20 million. So I think it's important to think about this bond as one piece, not like everything we're going to do or want to do.
Yeah, no, it's a really, really good, and maybe one way to think about it is if we were to add up in current 2026 or trying to project an inflationary number, these 11, 12 near-term priorities plus a pool expansion is probably, I'm just going to say $70 million worth of work, $80 million worth of work. So this potential for a near-term, a bond renewal is, hey, community, do we want to find a way to fund a quarter of that? And how do we best prioritize those investments? Does that maybe help with a little bit of spin?
This is not all the things we're going to do this bond, or is it for the next 5 to 10 years?
Again, to be determined, but it will be a pretty a pretty big lift. Obviously, revisioning Tibbetts Valley Park is still going to be work, exploring how a pool gets expanded, how the rest of Tibbetts gets done, gets funded. You know, that's all, again, depending on funding. You know, the reality of how Parks capital funding happens and occurs is there's not a dedicated revenue source for Parks capital funding. So it is competing with heavy transportation needs and facility needs and all those other capital needs. So I'm sorry, Marlene, I'm not trying to be, I mean, it's
No, I'm just
sort
trying
of
to
to
get
be
that.
determined.
Right, I think it's just hard to say, okay, so if I was really prioritizing the work plan, if this is all the money I have,
Mhm.
I personally, and that's why we have lots of people on board, would prioritize in a different way. Right, and so I'm just trying to get a gauge of
Yeah.
like, okay, this is everything we're gonna do in 10 years? Or this is just a piece of it that we want to get through the bond?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think I would say in the next 5 to 6 years, it should package be created, should this go to voters, should voters say yes, this becomes a heavy part of our park planning and development team and director and parks admin teams. This is a heavy part of the work plan for the next 6 years. Just to get through, if it's 7, 8, or 9 capital projects and designing it, doing engagement, doing permitting and construction. This would pretty much become the work plan for the next 6 years.
So to her point, then this is not like a piece of the pie for the next 5 or 6 years. This would be the major lift for the parks in
Oh,
Issaquah.
absolutely. Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
there's not like other chunks coming in.
Correct. There's not another $60 million coming in. So when I say the $80 million reference was more need, right? If we were to fully fund the near-term projects, including fully redoing Tibbetts Valley Park and expanding a pool, that would require plus or minus maybe $80 million that we don't have. Right? So this would be, should this go to vote, should it be renewed? This would be $20 million, $25 million of that 80 that would be known, that would become real.
Well, I think when the mayor sat down and kind of proposed what his thoughts were, obviously we're talking about it, but like, I think coming off the 2 school bonds that didn't pass and looking to come back to the community a 3rd time in 18 months or whatever, say, can you look at another bond or re-upping its bond? His kind of conversation was, if we want to get this approved, we need to have a pretty clear roadmap of this is how we're going to improve the park system across these 3, 4, 5, 6 areas across the city. And you can lay out, this is exactly what this money's going to do, so that the voters have a clear understanding of it. I think like that's where some of the conversation of Poole and Tibbetts gets a little muddied is, I'm all team Tibbetts as well, but as you said, this money won't cover that. And then how does that, if you went to the city and said, we have this one project we want to do, and this is the bond for it, you won't get any of this other stuff. Not sure we're in a spot where we're maybe getting approval.
You know what percent the bond passed last time?
I'll find that out. I'll find out both in 2006 and 2013. It was well over 65%.
And is it just a simple majority it takes?
It's a 60%.
60.
It's a bond. So as a bond, it's
60%.
60%. Yeah.
And just going back to the school bond, I think the voters find it hard to forgive because originally, the bond that we passed was for a specific project, and the Issaquah School District mismanaged the money that was given and then was not very transparent with the voters. And I think that's the reason why voters have a hard time forgiving and wanting to, give more money. So I think if we're asking for a bond and we say this is what we're, based on what our community feels strongly about, and we follow through, then I think that the voters will believe and vote for. But if you say, you ask them what they want and they support that, and you use that money doing something else, then nobody would definitely be in favor of that.
Being transparent, showing that follow through, being transparent with here's the projects that we intend to get done, and then demonstrating and earning that trust is really, really important. These are absolutely right. Well, great questions, great discussion. Why don't we kind of start talking about projects? I'll emphasize here as we talk about these, again, this is pulling off of our park CIP and the near-term priorities within the park plan. Also focusing on, as the mayor shared in February, and Ryan, as you said so well, we think strategically, if we want to consider this, we think multiple small to medium-sized projects is going to be a better community and a broader and better community impact than something singular. And so you're seeing here is small to medium-sized projects that, again, thanks for your question, Tim, really improve functionality of the existing system. So with that, first, Eck House. You're familiar with where the Eck House is. It's in the northeast corner of Confluence Park. It is set there unimproved for way too long, way too many years. You might recall, as part of the community investments that were done as we did pedestrian park, we also considered doing some improvements here to the Eck House. Unfortunately, those federal funds only went so far, but we were able to really begin talking about this with the community, and so much so that we also reached out to King County Landmark Commission and started talking through really the nuts and bolts of what would it look like to landmark a building such as this. This is one of the last remaining, if not the last remaining, historical farmhouses that was on the valley floor. So very, very worth preserving and considering landmarking. What we talked about with the Landmark Commission and what we're presenting in this narrative and would want to further discuss with the community is we think, yes, landmarking a building, but activating that building as well. And so this wouldn't be something landmarked that would just be looked at with a sign on the outside of it, but how do we create activated public space that could be used as a park pavilion, if you will, in addition to the park, but be a wonderful landmark building that tells a really important and a piece of Issaquah's history. So we think there's grant funds out there for historical projects like this. We think there's an opportunity to do this right, to have this facility really feel like an asset within the park. Is a real opportunity. We've had a chance to talk with Historical Museum recently. They're very, very excited, obviously, about this project and love seeing this as something that's being considered should there be a park bond renewal. We do not have existing city funds. The city has not had funding to get this done. I appreciate what Steve said. But there's no money to get this done. We think considering asking voters to renew a bond and then leveraging grant funds is a great way to finally get this important project done. Diane's got her hand up. Yeah,
Went up and then down. Yeah, Diana.
Oh yeah, I put my hand down in case I was being premature and you were getting around to maybe answering my question, but I think I can ask it now. Can you help us visualize more fully what it would mean for this facility to be activated, as you say?
Yeah. Go ahead, Diane.
Yeah, you mentioned a pavilion with seating, but kind of what else could be involved?
Yeah. So as we again met with the landmarking folks, the real historic value that they saw as we toured the inside and outside of the building is really the shell of the house. And so, and really the front and the two sides probably have the highest historical value. Interesting enough, the back of the house does not have as much historical value. What that led to is we were brainstorming with the Landmark Commission, those who were on the park board in 2022, 2021, as we were talking about this, might recall this conversation. One of the things we talked about was taking in the inside of the building, removing the second floor, not the building, but making it so as you go into it, imagine a high vaulted space that really functions as a really cool historic rental facility for indoor rentals, for art exhibits. The Arts Commission would be super, super excited about having something like this that could be a community asset. And then imagine the back of that house, which really faces the park and has the relationship to the park. What if that had some type of either accordion doors or roll-up door so that it functioned as an indoor-outdoor pavilion in the summer months? It was able to either host bigger rentals or those types of events that would need sort of that indoor-outdoor space. And so, again, as we brainstorm this with the Landmark Commission, they love that idea of, again, landmark facilities that are used, touched, enjoyed by the community. Does that answer your question, Diane?
Yes, it does. And I think it will also help the community and voters visualize what this project can actually be and how it can serve their needs.
Yep. Great point. And I think we're going to find that true in all of these narratives. And we are up really on the front end of these conversations, but there is some more work, and Robin and I are trying to line up what that work would look like in the next couple of months. Again, pending conversation with City Council, but having a more robust narrative and either some type of renderings for each of these that do a better job of telling the story. We're not going to have time, nor do we really want to have the budget to design all these. But Dan, it's a great point that I think is going to be true of all of these.
Chris, did you have a question? Comment?
Yeah, just a follow-up comment for Diana in particular, but for all of our newer members. A few years ago, we did a study on renovating the Eck House, and or I should say, staff did a study, and there's some great images in those that could be shared, independently with Park Board right now or after this meeting. But then they might be usable for any bond effort. But they really showed how that inside could really work for a great event space, and then how it would connect with the outside, and how we got to that image that you see on the screen right now.
Thanks, Chris. Great reminder. All right, so next. Oh yeah, please do. Yeah.
Not too many months ago, a good portion of Confluence was underwater. So are we comfortable that this house is protected from those kind of events, that the diversion is not going to end up impacting what we might be building?
Great question. And yes, absolutely. We're confident. So Confluence Park was designed to handle that, the Oxbow and Eck House is outside of that floodplain area.
Because anybody that saw that last winter is going to be like, well, yeah, what are we doing? Is it going to get flooded out? So I think that's an important point.
It's a really important point. It's a great point. If the whole valley floor got flooded, then this would be obviously flooded.
That's another conversation.
I do think some of this restoration work, fun fact, the Eck House is still on its original timber. So it doesn't have a foundation. It's just on old timber stumps. So obviously converting this, restoring this is going to include building a whole new foundation. So thinking through some of those mitigations will be important.
That's a nice addition to plywood side. Some of we see too.
Yes, it did.
Yeah.
And this is one that we would assume would start to pay for itself over time. Like we're expecting this would be one that would get
Yeah.
revenue generating.
Yes, yes, a number of these. That's a great point, Marlene. Yes, this would have a revenue generating element. Yeah, once the capital investment's made, at least operationally, it's generating revenue as well as being an expense. Yep. Next slide. So the trailhead formerly known as, the artist formerly known as East Sunset Trailhead, now Senator Bill Ramos Memorial Trailhead. As you all know, that has been a priority and a priority identified. It really serves as the primary gateway up into West Tiger, as well as Grand Ridge. A lot of people will park there and not only head up into Tradition Plateau and West Tiger Mountain beyond Tradition Plateau, but will also cross I-90 and head up into Grand Ridge Park. So a very, very strategically located, important trailhead. Investments we'd like to make here is improving the surfacing and with some type of sustainable paving within the parking area. Also looking at adding restrooms, which have been identified by many as a strong desire, as well as a number of other storytelling, wayfinding opportunities. Next slide, question?
I
Yeah.
was just say, I like this one too. I think one of the benefits of this is it's close to Old Town. Again, from an economic development, like why would we want to get more people there? So then hopefully they go have lunch or go buy something.
You have a great point. And you'll see this in our other two trail corridors. We really see the strategy of our park system serving this role of serving the community, but also being this gateway to the public lands around us. The more we can do that closer to Old Town, you're absolutely right. It's a great point. Invest here. Speaking of those corridors, in 2018 and 19, we were successful in a really strategic acquisition of the property known as the Bergsma property. This has created a great opportunity to really strengthen the corridor or strengthen a trail system from the valley floor up into Cougar Mountain. Much of Cougar Mountain is owned by King County and is part of the King County Regional Park, but there's not a lot of immediate, easy access from the valley floor up into that trail system. And so as we purchased that property, King County was very involved and very supportive of that acquisition, very supportive of thinking through and really activating this corridor with trails. We're here at Tibbetts Valley Park. Just to the north of us is the Sound Transit parking garage. A lot of the vision and benefit was imagine that parking garage could function as a trailhead. Bergsma, this property comes right down to the intersection there at 900 and Newport. So again, bringing an opportunity to develop this. We've acquired the land. The idea, the concept of this investment is really now's the time to design and construct that trail system within that corridor. And then its parallel project, its partnered project is on Squawk Mountain. Just on Friday the 13th, we closed on the Kilkari 3 purchase that we'd highlighted with all of you. That's a 17-acre. It was planned to be Kilkari Phase 3. Kilkari Phase 1 and Phase 2 were multifamily condominiums that have already been constructed. The developer sold us that 17 acres. We had previously purchased 20 acres of an adjoining property that combined what we refer to as Weymouth. The Weymouth property creates a 30+ acre corridor on Squawk Mountain. Again, from the strengthening and really having opportunity to really broaden our trail access, direct trail access up. In this case, much of Squawk Mountain is owned by state parks, and there's the Squawk Mountain State Park But again, the only real access, true parking, vehicular access to Squaw Mountain State Park is on the May Valley roadside. So this, again, just would allow really, really important trail connections, also some neighborhood trail connections and loops for the neighbors that live there on Squaw, and that portion of Squaw Mountain, highly a high priority corridor to do some real trail development on.
Which side of Squawk is this on?
This is on the, if you know where this road is, this is Sunrise. So it would be the
east
northeast side of Squawk. So if you took Mine Hill Road, you know where that is?
I mean, I live halfway up Squawk, but I'm on the north side, and I'm
Yeah,
just
this
trying
is
to
south.
imagine where this is.
This would be more the southeast side of the mountain.
Wildwood
I'm
area.
sorry, Wildwood. Thank you, David.
Okay.
So
So-
these,
Is this, and then, so what I'm getting to, if this is kind of on the east side, there's a big stretch on the east side on the old grist trail up there that got devastated with the bomb cyclone. I don't know if you've been up there, but it's so impressive to walk through there and see thousands of trees down. You might even be seeing it up high there where it looks like the patch that's a little bit bald. I don't know. But what I'm trying to get, I'm just wondering, does this encompass part of that?
this 37 acres does not, but this 37 acres directly adjoins state park property. So it creates a seamless from what is known as Mine Hill Trail. So if you were at Newport, if you're at the pool, if you're at the swimming pool, cross the Newport Bridge, took a left on, we refer to it as the Mine Hill Trail. I don't know the name of that road, forgive me, but take that left before you head up into Squawk, follow that, go past the Wildwood Apartments, and then you end up in the Calcari Phase 1 and Phase 2 areas. That becomes Sunrise. This is Sunrise right here. And so this is the 37 acres that probably heads up to about there, and then that's all state parks.
Part of the Issaquah over.
It's not that far east. Issaquah Hobart is the far east side of, and that's really outside of the city limits. So this is inside the city limits. I know Kim, Executive Director of the Issaquah Alps Trails Club, is probably listening in right now. We've had a chance to meet with them a couple times there. Have been very, very interested in trail development, both on Cougar Mountain, the Bergsma property, as well as these two properties that we've recently purchased. We know they would be a very active partner in not only working through the trail design process, but also where there's opportunity to leverage either grant funds or in some cases where trails, often wilderness trails like this and segments of it that aren't too complicated, but can be done through volunteer efforts. So, the funds could be leveraged both through volunteer resources as well as grant resources as we really think about the trail construction of both of these corridors. Really, really key opportunity. Again, taking land we've purchased, putting it to better function. I think we would all agree on weekends. And you think of the valley floor, West Tiger Mountain is very overprescribed at times. And so the opportunity these corridors really have to allow that recreational use to be strategically and smartly spread out and distributed a little bit more amongst our three Alps and not overprescribing one so much. Hi, Diana.
Hey, yeah, I just have a quick question about this Squawk Mountain development. So I went and scouted that area with Dave Kapler last winter before I joined this park board. And what I remember about it is it's near another trailhead. And that trailhead sees pretty sparse use, but it's been slowly growing. And users of that trailhead kind of park along the residential road. And it's starting during kind of peak usage times to get kind of backed up. With the addition of more trails in that area and the intention to expand usage, would there be more parking, or is that something that's been considered?
It's very much being considered. Yeah. So as we closed on the Kalkari phase 3 property, that has a lot of frontage along Sunrise. So something we've already sort of explored and looked at, and we'd want to talk further with the community about with this project would be adding some parking and taking that parking off of that residential road, which is Sunrise Place.
Okay, so that would be within scope for the usage of these bond funds?
You would like, yep.
Okay.
All right, so athletic fields, also certainly a priority identified from the community by the community in the park system plan update. As I said earlier, we are not in a position to go buy flat, accessible, developable land in Issaquah. So a big part of that strategy is how do we improve our facilities? How do we partner with the school district, consider improving some of their facilities to create better, more functional community spaces. As we shared this with you in February, we identified the potential, not that they could all be funded, but 4 or 5 opportunities we have to consider creating and utilizing synthetic turf to create multi-use community sports fields. 3 of those, as we've talked with the school district, would be looking at the 3 elementary school sites here within the city of Issaquah. So that's Issaquah Valley Elementary, Grand Ridge Elementary, and Clark Elementary. All 3 have play spaces, field spaces that are very, very unimproved. The concept, as has been modeled by other cities, I've in my career, I've had the chance to be part of these community sports field projects where the community invests on those school fields where there's not, varsity competition happening. In this case, these 3 elementary schools are great candidates in that the improvement on those fields creates a much more functional, less dirty, less muddy recess space for kiddos to enjoy and to be an asset for the school during school year and during school hours. But then in off hours, after hours, and weekends and summer, there's suddenly so much more community capacity created with those fields. School district remains very supportive and very interested of these being considered as part of a park bond renewal. Along with those 3 opportunities at the elementary schools, we also have in our near-term priority list Central Park Pad 2. If you're familiar and recall Central Park Pad 2, that is the area of Central Park that has 2 baseball fields that much like all the soil that was sort of stockpiled onto Central Park as those houses were created, were very poor functioning, poor draining soil. And so we have 2 baseball fields that are really not used near to the degree that they should be. They're also, in just how they were originally configured, very limiting in their size. And so the premise of Central Park Pad 2, similar to what we've done with Pad 1 and Pad 3, where we utilize synthetic turf instead of the very unsuitable soil that is there on site. For any and all of these projects, we utilize under the field for stormwater capacity and filtration and all those requirements. So we're not having to create separate stormwater ponds, but we allow the field to function environmentally, actually probably function better than it's functioning now. And the community gets a much better functioning, increased capacity athletic field for really any of these sites. The issue before us, though, is this, the likely proceeds from this bond would have a hard time funding all four of these. So, you know, what would it look like if we did two of these, and how would we prioritize which two do we want to focus on? A lot more work to be done as we really better understand the conditions of each of those sites and what budgetary constraints and considerations that we're going to need to think through and how we stretch our dollars. But I have questions at the end, but we could certainly, this has been great just talking about each of these projects as we go. Would love to get feedback and thoughts. Just if you have questions or concerns about synthetic turf, or if you have thoughts about which of these we should prioritize. I would say keep in mind also, I think geography is really, really important on this one too, is how are we geographically distributing our improved athletic fields throughout the community? Thoughts, questions, comments?
I have some thoughts, but, you know, I think there's a lot more benefit to turfing the elementary school fields than pad 2, even though pad 2 is a mess. But I think you get benefit in that the community's using them every day of the week at that point in time. And the kids are out there playing. The after school activities are out there enjoying them. Then you're programming it for some type of revenue generation. I think those, you know, as I think about how that can impact a whole lot of people, is you're getting, I mean, hundreds and hundreds of people, kids a day playing on those fields. I think could have a lot of positive.
It's a great point.
Impact there. Pad 2, I think it's great, but it still functions in the way it functions right now. We play the whole summer, spring of baseball up there. Yeah, but I mean, that's kind of how I thought of these. And kind of looping back on some of this is, you know, the people I talked to from like the last meeting and people in the community I had conversations with is, yeah, the things that I heard most kind of piqued people's interest was, well, one is always Tibbetts. It's always been Tibbetts. We know that's a funding thing. So, but really the school field situation, the Eck House, and the Senator Bill Ramos Trailhead, kind of the three that people were like, those have a great impact. Those, and they're visible, like you see them, they have impact. I mean, having I was just at Confluence Park yesterday. I was looking at I don't know how long we've been there, the new metal beds that are in the community.
Yeah, just this winter we had nice beds.
Yeah, I was like, didn't know those before, but you know, and just thinking about that is something that people walk by and drive by, and there's this eyesore. I mean, it really is right there in one of the most beautiful anchor parks in the city, and you're gonna have a lot of function there. And the people I talked to really felt that way too. So, and as we talked about some of this, but talking about this one specifically, is that there's a lot of value working with the school district. And I think I've talked about this before. I've talked about this at other meetings that we had. The superintendent here, I believe a couple meetings ago, or
Jason, the director of
facility, and just talking about how much more of a partnership, a long-term lasting partnership we want to build between the school district and the city. And I think that's kind of like an olive branch piece of it. That's everybody. So there's my 2 cents.
Appreciate that.
Piling on, I'm going to agree with you. I think doing the elementary schools would be a huge
win.
I think the other thing when we're thinking about this is where is the turf already located versus not located? So the valley floor is a turf desert. So when kids want to play on the valley floor, they're muddy or they're not playing outside. So I think, and we're going to talk about the playground on the next page, but I would be remiss not to say that there should be at least some turf there. I know we can't do the whole thing. If we're going to have this huge playground and then the kids who want to go play ball have nowhere to play, it's not muddy, we're missing a huge opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, just to,
Geography is,
Yeah.
I agree.
just to expand on that a little bit further is, you have, like, I think Dogfield, I don't know how much programming is, but they're programmed out. Much more significant. Someone that just had 5 of the last 7 baseball practices rained out at Tibbetts Park and Lakemont in the last 2 weeks. Having an additional space would be.
Additional turf helps with,
So having 8-year-old boys practice at 9 o'clock on Saturday night at the Central Park.
I think it's just the playtime too, right? Like, that's the thing about Central Park, is there's always kids playing there,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Like, you go to Tibbetts and it's a ghost town. So there's a reason.
Yeah.
Yeah, the vibrancy of both scheduled use, but also unscheduled, just drop-in use is, yes.
They're really all this higher density housing there. There's nowhere for those kids to play. Like, that's a mess.
Thank you. Any other thoughts,
So
comments? This is great.
you see, all 4 of these options would be difficult to fund. You're talking about all 4 that are just on this one slide. You're not talking about,
Yeah, just this funding all 4 fields is,
okay,
yes,
you weren't talking about the other projects. So
exactly.
just, is it typical for a city parks department to fund improvements at a school playfields? Because I would have, is it? Okay. Because I would have thought that was the school district's responsibility and it was not really a crossover, and maybe it is, and that's my ignorance.
I would say, well, I'm saying yes, because I've done it in my own career. So I think depends on the city. I think when you think of how land constrained Issaquah is and how creative and innovative, we really owe it to the public to be. These are very doable these days, and they're not out of the norm. So I'll give an example from my own career. Lake Washington School District and the city of Sammamish in 2004 created and built a community sports field at East Lake High School that is still functioning 22 years later, and is an important community asset, and especially at that time of the city of Sammamish, clearing a bunch of trees and to create more athletic fields was really seen as a tough trade-off. And so we really saw this opportunity to say, hey, why don't we partner with the other public agency? There are 2 public agencies, and it's in both public agencies' best interest to make this investment. The city fully funds the investment. The city then schedules, maintains, and collects the revenue from that community sports field to really, position it to function just like a city park facility in many ways, other than when the school is in operation.
I see schools be more territorial about their playfields, and they weren't really open to the public. You had to have some connection.
Traditionally, absolutely.
And so I'm trying to understand sort of boundaries here, if we're taking money that is coming from the pot for the whole city, we're improving the school fields, but not everyone is allowed to use those fields. Is that, fair play? I don't know. And like I said, I may be very ignorant of the trade-offs here, but I'm just trying to understand.
It's a careful relationship. You touch on tradition. I would agree with you, but I think those traditions are being slowly eroded as both school districts and cities are realizing, hey, we're better partnering together on this. Any investment like this would come with a pretty clear ironclad agreement between the 2 agencies that say, hey, here's this investment's being made by the entire community. Here's the strings that come with that investment: access, availability, time, and all of that. And so you really, again, I think the what works so well at Eastlake High School in that community sports field is it's even signed differently. So as if you have a scheduled game, yes, you're walking onto a high school campus, but you know when you're on that community sports field, it's, hey, this is city space. This is different than the rest of the campus. And so if we do elementary schools, we'd want to design and think something very similarly that, hey, during the school day and during recess, this feels like this is the recess space, but at the same time, as the community's using it, it feels like they're not invading an elementary school. They're welcome. This should look and feel like a neighborhood park.
That's not been my experience, and so that's why I asked the question. I've seen lock gates and signage saying, you know, if not this, then stay out. And so I'm wondering about just, is it, the way you describe it, I think is wonderful. You know, if it's, we're helping to pay for it and the city public gets access to it, that's great. It's not always the case. So that's why I ask.
I think this really demonstrates as we talk to the community, right? It's like, we need to be, if you might remember this, we need to be innovative. We need to be creative. We need to own the fact that we're really land constrained. And so I think, I appreciate this discussion because I too would say this opportunity to partner with the district, I think comes at a strategic time and I think tells a innovative story. It shows that innovative approach by both agencies. So.
And Matt's second question is, do you have a high level feel for order of magnitude of these projects financially?
We're getting there. So yeah, in fact, when you super rough, in the minutes, you will see this is included in the minutes, which was what the mayor and I sort of just talked through and walked through, on a very rough scale to do, two of those fields. Two fields is probably we said $7.5 to $9 million investment to do two of them. We would also look at, if you recall, when we did Central Park, we redid the turf at Central Park Pad 1. We are phasing out crumb rubber. So for Pad 1, we used cork infill, an organic infill. Great news is the community has loved it. They feel like it functions just as well as the crumb rubber. So as we consider these fields, once we have to redo the turf on Pad 1, we will not be having crumb rubber as part of any of the synthetic turf facilities. So next item. Hey, good timing, Marlene. Play area. So these next two projects are added park amenities that could be considered at Tibbetts Valley Park. I think we've talked enough about Tibbetts Valley Park and know this is a community park that's lived a great life, but I would say it's not functioning to the degree that we really want or expect a community park to function or really need to function in its next 20 or 30 years. And so as we're doing the revisioning of that park and know the complexities of that park and what's happening both with the creek and with hydrology and with slopes and with the fields, what we're proposing with both the adding a more community, so this is a bigger play area that would also be an all-inclusive play area as well. We would have the revisioning work that we're going to continue on. Should we do this bond or not? That revisioning work really informs where this play area would be located. That will be an important part of messaging if we're moving forward with this bond. But when you look at, we have 4 classified community parks within our system. Right, we have Tibbetts Valley Park, Confluence Park, the sort of the conglomeration of Memorial Field, Depot Park, Pedestrian Park, and we have Central Park. So those are our 4 community parks, all of which sometime in the future, I should say none of which right now have what modern, it's not the right word, current park standards, none of them have a community park sized play area. And so, well, let me scratch that. Central Park has a community park sized play area. The other three, as we think of reinvesting or repurposing, we have a playground replacement program within our 6-year CIP. So this becomes a really good candidate. Reinvesting in play areas has already really been seen as a priority, both by the community and by city council. So this is an opportunity to really create a community park sized play area there at Tibbetts Valley Park. And then next, maybe we'll talk the 2 TVP sites to begin with. Again, this was really thanks to the discussion we had in February. We thought this was really, really important to add. As you all know, many of you know, Tibbetts Valley Park was first considered for the first dog park. A number of reasons, along with a global pandemic, sort of put a pause on that project. As we're about to cut a ribbon in a month or so for our Rainier Trail Dog Park, this would be a great second dog park. Again, geographically located in another part of town to serve the community here on Squawk Mountain and around Tibbetts Valley Park. Again, the revisioning work, much like the playground, the revisioning work would inform where this dog park would be located. So combined, at least at a minimum, the play area and the dog park become a really, I think, important initial investment into that revision Tibbetts Valley Park. Comments, thoughts, questions? That was the concrete pour. Those are the plazas on at Rainier Valley or Rainier Trail Dog Park.
Concrete's now done.
Any other just thoughts, comments about Tibbetts in general, or those two? We'll go on to the last one. Oh, go ahead, Ronnie, please.
I think very disappointed we don't have any turf to this. I mean, I don't know what to do with that other than tell you, like,
No,
I don't like that part of the plan at all.
it's great. I don't disagree. I don't disagree. Again, how and where, how much of an investment at TVP do we want to propose in this bond without having the revisioning done and knowing where it's going to be located? So very open to consideration and conversation if we want to think about that differently.
Different, like, talk to the sports parents a lot, right? What they ask me is, like, when is their turf?
Yeah.
What are we doing with that? Why is it always underwater?
Mm-hmm.
And I get that we have to do a lot of stuff across the community, so I totally get that. I just, from my stakeholders, that will be their number one question.
Right.
And again, just to be on the record, I think dog parks are a bad idea. I'll explain to you the reasons why, and I'll just put that out on the table. I can have a discussion with anyone who wants to have that as a long-term trainer. I have my reasons. I'd much rather see that money go into turf or playground or whatever. I just think dog parks in general are a bad idea. I'll just leave it there.
Great. No, thank you. And that's why the diversity of a park board and the diversity of the community is so important in all of these considerations. The last sort of idea we had in this example list of projects was another park amenity. We've heard time and time again through the park system plan update and others. How do we consider adding, expanding court facilities within our park system? This would be an idea of adding and expanding pickleball tennis courts into pad 3 at Central Park, where there currently are none. If you're familiar with pad 3, that's the lower synthetic turf fields. This project could add up to 4 tennis courts, which would be 8 pickleball courts. How that gets striped to be discussed. But there's a sort of a lawn area, very undefined transition area from the parking lot to the fields. In many ways, this would I think, better define it and formalize it, create a plaza space that would both support the courts as well as, I think, create a better transition area to and from the turf fields as well. There's an existing restroom there. So, how we either utilize that existing restroom, nudge that existing restroom. There's some, sort of potential cost savings there as we really start getting into how we, again, leverage investments and leverage some of our existing assets within the park. So.
You could sneak this one in the presentation.
Yeah.
I was gonna add that. So to note, it was added late this afternoon when we realized as we went through the list that we discussed. Again, in our haste, it's like, oh, because that wasn't on there. So we will make sure community that's listening, anyone who's listening to this a week from now or 3 weeks from now, we'll make sure the agenda packet includes this updated presentation that we showed here. And again, it's wanting to be consistent with what was shared and what people will see in the minutes for the possible Issaquah Park Bond renewal example projects. So
That could be a phenomenal way to use that space.
again, how do we take existing space and just create some additional capacity and additional functionality? And Robin was so humble. Robin is the one who actually did this, just really quick, sort of.
Oh, you're blaming her.
Back of the.
Blaming her, saying, hey, it's just a way to show at least scale, size, what could fit in that space.
So in general, I don't play pickleball or tennis. I have, no dog in that fight. So.
Wow. Just gonna roll.
Is there a sense of any sort of easing in the demand for pickleball, or is it still continuing to gain momentum?
I think we're seeing it gain. I know the use of the courts, all both tennis courts are now striped with pickleball courts at Central Park. Those are used a lot. The courts that we've done here at Tibbetts Valley Park are used a lot. If you go to the community center, we have open pickleball indoor. That's now continues to be super, super popular. So it's not going away. And there's a tennis at the same time, and this is what's interesting too, as pickleball has expanded, tennis is seeing a resurgence as well. So important to note that as well as we think through racket sports. And again, what I want to say, we're not proposing maybe tonight how this gets striped, but I would really want to strongly consider, tennis and pickleball are both really, really important court sports that I think are still seeing a degree of growth.
There's actually, I was up at Mount Vernon this weekend. They had on that side in one of these parks, it was bigger than this, but they basically just took a whole plot of land and just built like a giant metal lean-to over it and put like 8 courts in. It was packed. I was there for 12 hours. It was packed.
There you go.
Still a thing.
Yeah.
All right. Seeing no other questions, more time for a question and discussion. I really appreciate the conversation just throughout the presentation. Really don't mind that at all. But just some other things to consider both tonight as we further this conversation, but even in the week and weeks ahead. Other projects not on this list that we should consider. I've heard a couple. I've heard turf at Tibbetts Valley Park. I've heard a pool. What are we doing about a pool? Let's make sure the need for an expanded pool, it doesn't just get lost in this. Again, we talked about it before, but how might we prioritize athletic field sites? And then another thought to just probe with you all. Again, as we have the conversation with council, maybe a couple of conversations in the coming months, public engagement is going to be really, really important this spring and summer. And so we have certainly a lot of ideas on what to do, but what types of engagement and outreach do we really need to consider for what could be a really, really important summer to be talking with the community about this. Diana, I saw your hand up. Hi, Diana.
Hi, yes, I know I've spoken a lot, I'm sorry. And
Oh,
uh,
good.
I've been kind of hesitant to speak up about the turf thing because it seems pretty universally popular, but I just want to ask if part of the process for um, these turf installations is studying the environmental impact of long-term installations, especially since the problem that the turf is trying to remediate is these saturated fields, which means they'll be sitting right at the level of the water table. So just a general question about whether this budget would also include environmental study.
Yes, it absolutely would, Diana. So as we, any and all these projects will need to go through permitting. So that environmental review will be important. But yes, how and where we consider putting synthetic turf in this community is really, really important to ask. I think synthetic turf installations have come a long ways in making sure that they are more environmentally friendly, both in terms of how stormwater is addressed, how that water is treated. Again, the use of different infill materials. The industry's come a long ways, and we as Issaquah want to be on the front end of that and get away from some of the, reused tires and other crumb rubber that is sort of had concerns when it comes to environment, especially impacts on salmon. Some recent studies have shown. So yes, that will be an important part of the work and consideration of turf.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
Yeah, kind of a more, maybe a higher level question, but I think one thing that's being expressed here is these are great, and it's great that we've got this broad spectrum of projects. We're looking at trails, we're looking at doing stuff in different geographic locations. We're trying to address what we can within that estimated, $23 million budget. And then knowing that the city is also going to be looking for money for the police station and city hall projects that are very much needed. Is city council considering maybe polling the citizens for their appetite for like a bond 2 or a bond 2 and 3? So we might have this bond measure that's a renewal. That gets to, with all the things you mentioned, to 23 million. And then we measure if there's an appetite for, hey, city, do you want a pool and or do you want, a remodeled Tibbetts Valley Park, and we need X amount of dollars. And by the way, hey, city, do you want to help the police department have a functioning police station? So, police station and a city hall. So is that being considered at a higher level to,
Yes,
poll citizens?
Yeah, yes, Chris, absolutely. In fact, on April 6th, the council, they call it the Committee of the Whole, the COW is its acronym. I didn't come up with that. We'll have two topics. First will be facilities capital, so the public safety, police, city hall discussion, and then this park bond renewal will be happening the same night. Mayor very much wants to have a conversation about both of them and to think strategically, as you're saying, what might we be going out to voters for, and what do we need to try and fund with existing resources that we have. As this conversation moves forward and council considers this, it will be considered in light of those other capital needs and how those other capital needs will be funded.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. Anna?
Yeah, sorry, I've been so quiet tonight. This has been a really good discussion. I just really wanted to reiterate in my conversation, and kind of sharing the information from, last meeting. A lot of my community and friends did bring up the pool, so I just kind of wanted to throw my throw my 2 cents in the ring about that as well. Particularly, people brought up, the inaccessibility of lap swimming for the community as exercise alternatives, particularly for the people that are, working. And so I think a pool expansion is something that people are really looking forward to. And I don't know if this bond is the correct place to talk about that or not, but it's definitely something that's come up a lot.
It's really good. Thanks, Hannah. I think it's something we need to be willing to talk about. And again, if this moves forward, if there is a package of projects, I can guarantee you that package of projects will have things on it and will have things not on it that different people are going to feel and have opinions on. And so as a staff person, as a director, you would have my commitment to, we need to talk about all of it. We need to be able to say why something was on and not on, and acknowledge kind of what we started this conversation with, our needs and interests that this community has identified of what they want in their park system is more expensive than what this $20-some million will be able to do. And so both, Hannah, I appreciate you adding to that, and Katie, your comments earlier, I think are of really, really high value.
Jean?
Yeah, I just wanted to add a +1 to the pool comment. It's pretty impossible if you're a working adult to, not pretty impossible, but the times are extremely limited if you're a working adult to find lap swim time at the pool. So I, totally agree with that. And I'm assuming that part of our community engagement outreach strategy will include some kind of social media component to that.
Yes, absolutely.
Awesome. Great. Thank you.
Ever done a survey where we ask them to force rank the projects? So like, for example, you have that list that we all built together. Instead of saying this one bond for the swimming pool, this one bond for tickets, like this is how much we have and this is how much it might cost, and you force rank the survey, right? And then those are the 5 or 6 projects that we go forward with the bond. And someone's like, oh yeah, I remember I ranked these 3 high, and then it just automatically passes, right?
I've done it in my career. I don't know how much Issaquah has done it, but it's certainly something we should consider.
Talk about community engagement is, I don't think always our community engagement is a representative sample of our community.
Yes,
Sure, it's a
So
point.
like
that's the trade-off.
So like who like one, if I get a whole bunch of my people who really are into athletic fields to
They
like,
vote for them.
right? Like that's maybe not, you know what I mean? Just.
But that's also
wherever,
democracy
right?
in action too.
Marlene nailed it. And that's where I was going to go, is if you do a force rank survey like that you're really saying this is going to greatly inform decisions we make, you'd want to spend the extra money and do a scientific sample survey, right? Which is more expensive, a lot more moving parts to make sure you're getting a good, as best representation of the community as you can get. And so most of the quick surveys we do are not, scientific. When we put up the QR code on the trails, those are not a scientific sample survey.
Yeah, it's a data point. I'm just wondering.
Yeah.
Because I mean, that is true. If you do rally your community, then maybe that is what the community wants. And the people that don't care don't vote. Right? So
Yeah.
It's both sides.
Really, yeah. Wow, great discussion, you all. Really, really appreciate it. Any other thoughts, comments? I can give a little close.
I guess my last one is, Tim had mentioned not loving the dog park. Is everybody like, and I know I was just curious for the rest of us, like, I can kind of take or leave the dog part of Tim. Like, I'm just kind of curious, like, is it like, that one got added after last week's last discussion, and there's some emails around it. I'm just curious, like, how are people feeling about the dog park?
I think it was, years ago, even before the pandemic, I mean, there was a lot of interest in getting a dog park activities. And I know, it's people feel one way or another, but the reality is that even it not being a dog park now, you go there and you see, dogs running, off leash all the time. So the need is there. And now as we're building more apartment complex just across the street, we're going to have more dogs. And then, at least with a dog park, I mean, people know if they go there and they have a dog, but now if there's no dog park, you got unleashed and maybe untrained dogs running around, and you've got kids playing and whatnot, or you have dogs who are reactive. And so now, it's just, I feel like, yes, if we personally feel, I have my dog, I can't take my dog, but I feel that the need is there, and there are people.
It comes up
The
high.
park was being used as off-leash area as is, right? As you said. Yes.
And it came in pretty high on the list, I think, too, didn't it? Engagement.
Yeah. I think there's some piece, I'm not a pet owner, allergic to them all, but, I think there's some piece of, if you are doing some type of, re-envisioning of Tibbetts, is you have a lot more, you don't see people walking dogs at Central Park because there's always other stuff going on the fields, and there's people always playing out there, and there's much more dedicated sport activity. So maybe a dog park is high, but to the point of maybe the conversation, of like Tibbetts is kind of an off-leash dog park, is if it was re-envisioned as something else, that's not an opportunity people have today. I'm gonna walk my dog down to Tibbetts and throw a ball in field one.
Yeah, more diversity of use creates that natural surveillance, if you will, that it's not. Yeah. I can't just let my dog
It's
run.
not appropriate to let your dog run around anymore because
Once
there's
there's
kids playing out there and adults using it.
I don't know. I don't really have an opinion. Really enjoy watching all my neighbors walk their dogs in Squawk Mountain.
Well, my closing comment is this: we're not done with this conversation, so thank you. I'll provide you all an update with, how the conversation goes with council on the 6th. You're all welcome to either come or listen in or watch. Those are, I believe, live on Issaquah TV, but would, again, just appreciate your thoughts and continued conversation with your neighbors and spheres of influence. It's an important opportunity and an important conversation for this community to have. So appreciate it. Thanks. Really good.
I think, yeah, as you noted, that was our only regular business. Is your director's report somewhat substantial, or is it? I just want to make sure we're allowing time for other participants to.
Yeah.
Excellent. We'll go with that. Let's move on to the director's report.
All right. Thanks, Ryan. To be succinct, I've done enough talking. Park rules conversation. Thank you so much for that. We are preparing to engage the community through a survey, not scientific sample, but a survey to really begin to gauge feedback. Tim, I want to say thank you very, very much for just having a chance to look at the survey itself and gave some great feedback to Dale. Marky Crimp and Laura will be working side by side with Dale in that effort. But no, in the next really couple of days, next week, we should have some of those same sort of yard signs that we put up throughout our trail and park system with a QR code inviting our residents to partake in a pretty quick survey to give us their thoughts on park rules and what's important to them, and make sure as we're beginning to draft something, we're hearing what the community has to say. There'll be a social media blast and some news flash that'll be coming out from our communications team also. And then once that survey is done and compiled, and Dale and Laura are able to sort of review that and start to pull together some ideas and start framing up some actual rules and regulations, we'll come back to all of you. Probably have at least 2 more conversations before asking you to make a recommendation, and then taking those on to city council. So more to come. And just again, thanks, Tim. Appreciate that. One last one. Sorry, I just saw my other note. We were talking to Issaquah School District and our partnership there. Again, that relationship is really growing and really important. Great news, the joint use agreement, the draft, I think is in its final review. We got a few final comments from the district. We provided them a few final comments. Our city attorney's now looking at it. We would hope by sometime in April. In fact, right now there's a goal for a joint school district or school board and city council meeting, not for the sole purpose, but a joint meeting. They're trying to meet annually to talk about a number of things. But if we line this up, it'd be great at that joint meeting to have both the school board and the city council adopt that joint use agreement that same night. So I know that's been some work and some review that you all have given us over these last couple of months. I think we're in the final home stretch there.
Excellent. Thank you. Nick, how you doing? What you got for us?
Yeah, I was just gonna comment on the park board approval. Just one thing, I think the all-inclusive park idea, I think it was Tibbetts. I think it's a good idea. I toured last year. I went to accessible inclusive playground in Seattle and called Pathways Park, and the community really enjoyed it, and a lot of good work was involved. So I just think inclusive parks are really important. And then, like, I've used the Bohm Pool, and I agree that definitely the lane space, and there's just not a lot of time to find open lap swim. So that's an important thing. And then I guess the other thing I would say is the pickleball courts. There is like a student at Gibson Neck who is trying to run a pickleball club at the community center, but I'm sure they would definitely, like, it just reaffirms, like, definitely there's a need for pickleball, and a lot of you obviously are doing it. So yeah, that's some of the comments.
That's really great.
Thanks, Nick. Yeah, if the younger generation is falling in love with pickleball, that it's here to stay. Thanks, Nick.
I didn't have too much included. I did want to call out our colleague Stacy Van McKinstry did notify various boards of the Pickering Barn solar project ribbon cutting, which will be April 7th at 2 p.m., which is a pretty cool project. I think she includes some statistics on the power generation and stuff on that. So if you have opportunity to go support that project, that'd be exciting. Otherwise, is there anything else anyone has they'd like to add in or final conversation on?
One final good of the order. Again, Laura, welcome. I think you've seen name tags, but can we quickly just do a welcome? Maybe just introduce yourself and how long you've lived in Issaquah, how long you've been part of the park board. Laura can have a second to introduce herself as well, but maybe can we start here and, well, actually, can we start up on the screen? Chris, do you want to?
Happily. Yeah. Hi. My name's Chris Kovac. I have been a resident of Issaquah for 25 years, actually 26 almost now. And run my business from Issaquah as well. And I started board service on the Friends of Lake Sammamish State Park a long time ago. I did about 4 or 5 years there, and then joined the Issaquah Park Board, I think 8 or 9 years ago. So I think my term is up in 2027. And that's it.
Thanks, Chris. Diana?
Am I supposed to give all the same pieces of information? Or what's the format here?
Oh, just introduce yourself and how long you've lived in Issaquah, how long you've been part of the park board. Just introducing yourself to Laura.
Okay. My name is Diana. I have been a member of the park board for about a year. What were the other parts? How long I've lived in Issaquah? Was that part of it? I'm failing this. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I've lived in Issaquah for 7 years. What else did Chris say?
That was it. That's great.
Okay, great.
Awesome, Diana. Thank you. Hey, Jane.
Hi, Diana. Nice to meet you. I've been a resident of Issaquah. This will be 20 years since my husband and I moved from Washington, D.C. to the Pacific Northwest, and we picked Issaquah. Never looked back, and I've been on the park board for a little over a year.
And Hannah.
Hi, I'm Hannah. Here, let me turn on my camera. It's kind of scary here, but hi. I've been in Issaquah since 2020, so that's about 5.5, 6 years. I've been on the Parks Board for just about a year, which is kind of exciting. And gosh, was there anything else? I know I also need a teleprompter, Diana. I'm just excited to meet you. Great.
Thanks, Hannah. We love hybrid meetings, don't we? I'm convinced of this. We during the pandemic, we transitioned well to virtual meetings. I think we've always had in-person meetings well, but hybrid it's the hardest type of meeting to manage. So, Ryan.
Yeah, hello. We've met before, but I'm Ryan Olson. Been in Issaquah for 8 years and been on park board for I think 3 or 4 and a year as the chair.
Yeah.
Hey Laura, I'm Tim, and much like Ryan, I've been in Issaquah 8 years, been on the park board 4 years, and also volunteer at Mount Rainier National Park.
David, been here since 2017, so almost 9 years. Have a kid at Sunset. Been on the board for about 4 years.
I'm Katie, and I've been in Issaquah for 22 years. I have 2 kids at Issaquah High School, and this is my 5th year. I just got roped in to.
Yeah. My name's Nick. I'm a senior at Gibson Neck High School. I've lived here my whole life and started, this is the 3rd meeting I've joined.
Hi, nice to meet you. I'm Marlene. I've been in Issaquah since 2016 and I joined the park board in 2018. So been a while.
Well, I'm Laura Haas, and this group has been a fun one to start to get to know and the incredible work you guys have been doing. I come from the University of Washington School of Public Health. I spent my whole career at different departments and roles at the University of Washington. But I'm live in the neighboring city of Sammamish, and my parents have been up living there since before it was a city, so mid 80s, and my kids go to Blackwell Elementary in Sammamish, so know the area very well and really excited to work in the community. So.
And thank you for doing that. Really appreciate it, you guys. That's it.
Well, our next meeting is April 27th. You look like you had something else to say.
Well,
You want me to pause?
sorry.
Continue.
Shame on me. I'm just terrible. We've covered so much tonight. We might have a conflict on the 27th. We might be spread a little thin as staff. More to come. If that, there's a chance that school board and city council meeting might be on the 27th as well. Yes, the next meeting is scheduled on the 27th. If for some reason we may need to consider to move it, we'll send that out quickly.
As I understand it, the park board will be bumped for the school board.
You know, on the record, put it on the record.
So question about that, when we move a meeting, oftentimes it gets moved to a different day, like Tuesday. I've got a standing obligation on Tuesday. Is it possible it can get moved to a Monday, just a week before, a week later?
Yeah,
Just
we can,
put it out there.
yeah. Or sometimes, yeah, it gets,
An option.
no,
Survey monkey.
Force rank the tape.
sorry. Survey.
You gavel this puppy
Yeah.
with no further business. This meeting is adjourned.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Good night, all.